Hello everyone, welcome to the start of a brand new trip, a brand new adventure. I'm really excited for this one. This is going to be roughly a week-long trip in the Pacific Northwest, predominantly in Washington. I'm at a campsite in Washington right now. Let me show it to you. No views or anything, just all trees all around, but that's pretty too. This is my campsite here. It's a clearing in the woods here, and this road, this little dirt trail leads off to the main road, which is about 100 feet over that way. I drove 11 hours to get here today from my home in eastern Idaho. Long drive, but it was a good day. It was a relaxing drive, scenic drive. The primary purpose of this trip will reveal itself in the next video, but in this video I wanted to sample a little bit of what the Columbia Gorge here in southern Washington and northern Oregon has to offer. The Columbia River Gorge area, that is, which forms the boundary, the border between the two states. But that'll be for tomorrow. Today I just wanted to film this introduction here, show you this campsite, and now I'm gonna stop filming and just enjoy the quiet evening here, and I'll meet back up with you guys again in the morning. I'm camped here at this particular spot because it's not far from the first place I wanted to visit in the morning. So I'll meet up with you then in about 12 or 13 hours or so. Good morning. I'm at my first destination for the day, literally about 1 minute down the road from my campsite, which is why I camped there. There's one other car in the parking lot here. It's early, but it's not too early. It's about 7:40 right now. I usually like to be the first person at a given spot in the morning, but I let myself sleep in a little bit, so I'm here a little bit later than I normally would be. I believe there's a short little path here, short little trail from the road down to our first spot of the day. Looks like the path forks here. I'm going to take the right fork, and then that leads to a viewpoint, and then I'll take the left fork to go back down to the bottom. That'll all make sense in a minute here. This is Panther Creek Falls. It's a popular waterfall because, again, there's not really much of a hike to get to it, and it's a really pretty waterfall. So as I said, the trail forked up here. This branch of the fork went down to a viewpoint of the waterfall. The other branch of the trail, the other fork, goes down to the base of the waterfall. So that's where I'm going now, down to the bottom of the falls. Absolutely gorgeous waterfall here. It's beautiful. There are signs everywhere saying don't go behind the sign, don't go behind the barrier here. So I'm not going to get closer. But it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous waterfall. Probably 60 or 70 feet high, I would guess. now at Beacon Rock State Park, right along the Columbia River in the Columbia River Gorge. I'm on the Washington side of the river. This is a Washington State Park. And I'm pointing up here because Beacon Rock is just this giant rock formation. It is the plug of an extinct volcano. So it's basically a solid piece of granite here. And if you imagine a volcano that's shaped, roughly like this, in the middle there's a neck, a core where magma flows up and then comes out as lava. In the case of this thing, all of the volcano around it has eroded away, leaving just that volcanic neck, that volcanic plug. And there is a trail that goes up this thing. It's a wild trail, a switchbacks way up to the top of this thing. And I wish I could have shown you a good view of it as I've been driving, but one both good and bad thing about the Pacific Northwest is that it's beautiful and covered in trees, but all those trees mean that sometimes you don't have the best views. And so this rock formation is kind of standing on its own right along the river, and from the other side of the river it looks amazing, and maybe from farther downriver it looks amazing, but from the way that I've come, I haven't really gotten a good view of it except occasional glimpses through the trees. For now, let's get out and get our hiking gear ready, and let's hike up this thing. Just a towering rock formation, and I think the trail goes up this other side here. And it is very windy, so I apologize if that has any effect on the video quality here. It's out of my hands, unfortunately. So as I understand it, basically in the early 1900s, the guy who used to own this rock blasted his way up the side of it to build this trail. Here I've got a good view of the trail switchbacking its way up the rock. That is wild. And in case you're wondering, I'm not wearing this as a fashion statement. It's just an easy way to mask up when you're hiking. You can just have it down and pull it up whenever you pass by someone. Wow, look at this view from this little lookout point here. You can look upriver. This is to the east. And then also downriver to the west toward Portland. I think this is the top right here. It comes to kind of an abrupt end. Not incredible views from the top because there are trees in several directions. There are nice views straight out toward the Columbia River here. Beautiful as always. Yeah, it's really windy up here. Let's get out of here. Well, that was a fantastic hike. Really great hike. And it was surprisingly mild. It really wasn't that difficult of a hike. It was, it wasn't as steep as you'd think it would be because of all the switchbacks, and so highly recommended. Just a really fantastic hike. I'm now about 5 minutes up the road in a town called North Bonneville. Again, still on the Washington side of the river, and I keep saying that because that'll come into play throughout the day. I'm going to cross into Oregon a little bit later on, and I've come to this park to to bask in some Bigfoot paraphernalia here. So this part of the country, the Pacific Northwest in general, is prime Bigfoot territory. You see all sorts of Bigfoot themed restaurants and gift shops and gas stations and everything. In fact, just right here there's a Sasquatch restaurant of some sort. This right here, Hungry Sasquatch Meats and Sandwiches, is one example. Throughout this park here, there are various Bigfoot statues, and if you follow some of these painted Bigfoot tracks, they'll lead you around the park to see some of the various statues. But here is the entire Bigfoot family. Mom, dad, and 3 little kids. These were created by a California artist in 2012, I believe. The whole gang is here, the whole family. I'm further east along the Columbia River now. I'm in the Dalles, that's the name of this city. And I wanted to check out this rock that's in the middle of this intersection here. This rock is called Pulpit Rock. In the 1830s and 40s, there was a Methodist mission here. And the Methodist preachers would get up on this rock and preach to the Native Americans who would gather around. And the little marker on the side here says Pulpit Rock, Reverend Jason Lee with Reverend Daniel Lee and Reverend H.K. Perkins founded Methodist Indian Mission March 22nd, 1838. Here's the Wikipedia picture of someone sitting on the rock. I'll actually put it on the screen here for you to see a better version, but I'm gonna recreate that pose. It's interesting, this area is very dry. I'm about half an hour or 45 minutes east of where I was earlier along the Columbia River. You can see the river down over this way, and you can see how few pine trees there are. It looks much more barren, it's much more dry in general here. And that's because, of course, this area is on the east side of the Cascades, the east side of the mountains, and so it's in a rain shadow. When storms come in from the west, from the ocean, they hit the mountains, they drop all their snow and rain, and that creates what's called a rain shadow on the east side of the mountains where there's much less precipitation. It's like that with the Cascades here in Oregon and also in Washington. It's like that with the Sierras in California on the east side of the Sierras. It's very dry, it's a desert there, and so, yeah, it's kind of a shocking change of scenery in a half-hour drive. You go from very green, lush pine forest and waterfalls, and then just a short drive down up the gorge later, you're kind of in high desert. And I'm going to continue to go in that direction, continue to go east up the river, and there's one more thing I want to see and show you guys today. Actually, no, I just looked at my phone, looked at my itinerary for the day. There are 2 more things I want to see. Both are to the east. One is pretty close here, one's a bit farther to the east. I'm back on the Washington side of the river, and I am in Columbia Hills State Historical Park, or Historical State Park. I think it's State Historical Park. There's a short little trail here with a bunch of petroglyphs on boulders. There's some over here, and then just along this little pathway here, up against the cliffs, there are boulders with some really impressive looking petroglyphs on them. This area is known for a really famous petroglyph called She Who Watches, but you have to be on a guided tour to see that. It's somewhere over here, and we're not allowed to go over that way. So we're going to see some of these other ones over against the cliff here. So you'll notice that all of these are on smaller pieces of rock, smaller boulders. None of them are really in the cliffs, I don't think. Maybe a couple were in the cliffs, but most of them are on boulders. And the reason for that is because this is not the original resting place, the original location of these boulders. These were moved here from lower down along the Columbia River when certain sections of it were dammed. And so to protect these and to keep them from going under, they were, well, some of them were carved off from the cliff that they were attached to. Some of these are or were standalone boulders to begin with, but most of these, especially those first ones, were all attached to a cliff and then taken off, and eventually they were laid to rest here, where you can now come and see them. And you know, what's really interesting to me is just how different they look to the ones that I am accustomed to seeing in Idaho and in Utah. It just goes to show how this is just a completely different culture. This was a completely different culture to the one in my neck of the woods in the Intermountain West, and so just really, really fascinating. My two favorites were the bird and then that horizontal cat thing that was like 5 feet long. Really, really beautiful and interesting petroglyphs here. Okay, gonna leave here, gonna head off now to, I believe, our final destination of the day, which is, again, farther to the east. On a bluff overlooking the Columbia River here is this. This is a life-size Stonehenge Memorial. This is how Stonehenge originally looked. This was the original layout before a bunch of the stones, you know, fell over and everything. It was built in the early 1900s as a World War I memorial to the fallen soldiers. There's a plaque here in the middle. It says, "In memory of the soldiers and sailors of Klickitat County who gave their lives in defense of their country, this monument is erected in the hope that others inspired by the example of their valor and their heroism may share in that love of liberty and burn with that fire of patriotism which death alone can quench." The memorial here was started in 1918, took over a decade to complete, and of course 1918 was the year that World War I also ended. I don't know if I said this earlier, but it was the first World War I monument in the United States. It was built by a local wealthy businessman and lawyer and a railroad executive by the name of Sam Hill. So I just read the sign out by the monument, and it talks about why Stonehenge. Apparently Sam Hill, that wealthy businessman, went to visit England during World War II, saw Stonehenge, and at that time it was believed that Stonehenge was used for human sacrifice. And so he thought, wow, we're still sacrificing people on the battlefield today, and so he came back here to where he was from and built this Stonehenge monument. And I think that's going to end this video. It's only 1:30, but I have some errands to run today and some preparation to do for the next video, which will actually start, I'll start filming that video proper at about midnight tonight. I know that's a little bit cryptic, but I guess you'll just have to tune in for the next video. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. Had a really great day. I've driven through the Columbia River Gorge several times. I haven't done a whole lot there in the past. Usually I'm just driving through to get to one place or from one place to another. But at the start of this trip here, I wanted to make sure that I spent some time, dedicated some time to actually seeing some things in and around the gorge, and I'm really glad I did. So lots of cool stuff today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video too. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite part was. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you in the next one. Be sure to check out Adventure Know-How, my new site, where you can gain access to a map of all of my free campsites, plus monthly bonus videos that you won't find anywhere else. Learn more at adventureknowhow.com. And for links to everything else SUV RVing related, visit suvrving.com. Links to these sites and more will be in the video description.